Oh, huh. Yeah, I thought it might be a good idea to make mention of this. Oh, I love this movie. But anyway, if you're ever stuck on a project, it's often a good idea to put in the original inspiration for starting it in the first place. And while this is not actually my personal inspiration for starting the Iron Man build, I wanted to get kind of re-energized for working on it again tonight. And if it seems that I'm a little distracted, it is because I am. This is a this is one of my favorite movies ever. And so, also another good thing about this is that whenever you look at your old references, um, you can sometimes see something that you might have missed before, or you will be reminded of something that you need to do on the model you're working on. Love that line. So anyway, let's take this from my armchair to my workbench. All right, man, that is a good movie. In case you were wondering, no, I did not completely stage that, although yes, some of it was. Um, some of it was staged, but I really did watch that movie start to finish. I can't get enough of these awesome movies they're coming out with nowadays. Some people hate them because they're really um, flashier, I guess, more effects driven than some movies. But it's it's Marvel. Marvel and Star Wars, Star Trek, all that stuff is about is more than just the story. It's also about action. So, I mean, I don't hear too many complaints about Iron Man, of course, but there's people complaining about Trek and all that stuff. Doesn't make any sense to me. So, let's run down I told you. I told you I was going to do the TIE Defender tonight. Yesterday I told you that. But, I didn't get to Iron Man yesterday, and I really want to get back to that kit. And in order to pave the way for a new project on my bench, get it out of the way. The TIE Defender is not as far along as this, and so the sooner I get to this, the sooner I can get to the next project. I'm not sure what it'll be. I want to do a scratch build in this show, just to kind of show you that there's no real mystery to that. But I also want to get some of these other kits that I've already started out of the way, like the Klingon Bird of Prey I mentioned. I think last video I mentioned that. Anyway, tonight we're going to be completing the lighting system for Iron Man. All it's going to consist of is a switch and a battery snap, and of course battery. This is an ever ready. Not that that's relevant. And then after I do that, I'm going to clean up the seams, and then paint the base coat, and hopefully get the primary colors on. Oh, and I also want to try a little bit of battle damage. Something that was really interesting about Iron Man is how battle damaged his suit got after every battle, showing that it's not completely invincible, and but he's still standing after every battle, which is what really, I think, in my opinion, drives the character. So I'm going to show some battle damage on this thing. Alright, well, now that I've outlined what I intend to do, let's get started with the electronics. Okay, got my materials all set up. Now, what I plan on doing here is making a battery box for this. Got to hold it in place into here somehow. I can't just have it dangling around. If I do, the connections will get worn, and they'd have to be resoldered an awful lot. So what I'm going to do is create a battery box out of this thick styrene plastic. You can look at it from the side and tell this stuff is this right here is monster styrene. well, not the biggest, of course, but for modeling purposes, it's monstrous. And I'm going to construct the box out of it. It's going to take a while to cut through, though, because it's so thick. But I plan on having this fit snugly on the inside of it and snap in place. That's the plan. So I'm going to go ahead and get to cutting on this stuff. And then once I get the pieces cut, I'll turn the camera back on. Got them cut. Now, as you can see here, it has been sized to fit precisely this 9-volt battery. And I did that simply by taking the overall length that I wanted and marking it down. And I went a little bit beyond what I needed, because I want enough room for this to be able to lift out. So and in order for that to happen, there has to be enough room for it to slide forward a little bit. So I gave it about a couple of millimeters, just enough for it to play with. And then, of course, I set it on its side and took the measurement from either end of the battery. And then I cut the pieces. Oops, sorry about that. I knocked this camera an awful lot, don't I? Okay, now in order to get the battery to snap in place, I'm going to have something up here all along the top end up here, or at least in a couple of spots for it to lock in place. Need a couple of tabs. So what I think I'm going to do is take a piece of styrene rod. Maybe a piece of styrene rod will work. Yeah, I think it will. Take a piece of styrene rod and sand it off on the bottom a little bit, and then put one on each of the corners there to hold it in place. So I'm going to have to look for it, though, because I'm not exactly sure where I put that stuff. And so I'm going to have to put another pause in this video, but bear with me. I will get all the pieces together eventually. I am back, and I found something even better than rod. A piece of styrene half round. Notice the end there is, it shows the half moon shape of this piece. This will be perfect because the back side is flat and the top side is round. That'll keep this battery in place. Now let's get to constructing this thing. I've already got all the pieces cut. Well, not all of them. Give me a second here. These don't have to be precise, but I would prefer that they are the same length, just for aesthetics. And the way I do that, the way I make sure they're the same length without a, without the chopper, which is a really good tool, by the way, is take it, score it, bend it so that it breaks, but not so that it breaks completely in half. You want to have a little bit left for a joint. Then you just simply fold it over on itself, mark the new location for the cut, and then bend it and break it. Two pieces that are just about the same length. So I'm going to go ahead and start gluing this. I'm going to start gluing this together. Get my trusty 10X. Oop. I don't know why it is, but your hands often have a tendency to stick to styrene just a little bit, probably because of the oil that's on them. It creates a suction effect. So you want to be careful. You want to be really careful and make sure that your piece is loose from your finger before you release it. I'm sure this is probably nothing new to most of you, but it's a note that I like to keep in mind just for my own understanding. Okay. These little boxes like these that I'm making here are, I think there's something that every modeler needs to know how to make, because there's always going to be some model out there that's that needs a battery box like this one does, or maybe needs a light box. or maybe a structural reinforcement. Let me test this here. A structural reinforcement so that it will withstand movement, or something like that. And a typical box shape is, as you've seen here, fairly easy to make. Notice here, by the way, that I made it so that I made sure that I didn't measure from the width of this piece down here. I measured from the width of this plus the thicknesses of the walls. That way there's a butt joint right here on either side, and it will increase the strength of your part. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video now, get this thing completed, and then we'll see how well the battery snaps into it. Alright, I think this is set enough for me to test whether or not the battery snaps in place. So let's just, I'm going to set it in here. Alright, look at that. That sucker ain't coming out of there unless I want it to. Just for the record, I wanted it to come out then. Okay, now the next thing for me to do is, well, just fix the camera. Figure out how to attach it to the inside here. I'm thinking what I want to do is take some Mighty Putty and smush it in there, and try to get this thing a nice stable platform to glue on. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to locate my Mighty Putty first. But once I do, I'll come back and we'll fix this in place.